The Koffler Gallery is proud to present the world premiere of a heart-wrenching and fascinating exhibition, The Synagogue at Babin Yar, Turning the Nightmares of Evil into a Shared Dream of Good. Opening on the eve of Yom HaShoah, April 17th, and running until November, the multidisciplinary exhibition tells the bittersweet story of the Babin Yar Synagogue, which stands on the grounds of the first large-scale massacre of the Holocaust in 1941. Experience the full historical, political, artistic, and spiritual context of this incredible monument for the first time. The exhibition is free of charge. To learn more, visit kofflerarts.org.
Hi, Avi here. As our regular listeners may know, on Sunday we hosted a live taping of Bonjour Chai at Congregation Shaar Hashomayim in Montreal as part of their day of learning about the future of Judaism. It was a great event, and we thank the congregation for hosting us and the listeners who came out to hear it. For this week's episode, we wanted to give those who couldn't make it the chance to listen into that amazing event. We hope you'll join us at the next one. This is Bonjour Chai, the Chabad to the Bone edition. I'm Avi Feingold, live in Montreal at Congregation Shaar Hashomayim's day-long conference on the future of Judaism, and I'm here with my guest host for the day, Rabbi Shmuly Weiss.
Hello.
On today's show, we will talk about Chabad. What's their secret sauce? Are there opportunities and challenges? What are they for a global movement? So this topic came about because we recently featured Samuel Heilman on the show, which you can go back and listen to. The episode is called The Chabadification of Judaism. And we had a number of people comment on the show and figured that having a second part on this would be a good idea. And so one of the people who actually commented and contacted me was Shmuly Weiss, and he agreed to come on and be part of this discussion. Rabbi Shmuly is the rabbi of the Rohr Chabad house at McGill University, and while he is not the official spokesperson for the Chabad movement worldwide, he certainly has enough knowledge and wisdom to share with us. Shmuly, welcome to Bonjour Chai.
Thank you for having me. It's a real honor to be here.
Yeah, it's strange actually to record on a Sunday. I don't usually record on a Sunday. How was your Shabbos?
It was quieter than usual, being that the school's over. So it's a little. We call these the summer Shabboses. At the times, usually it's not the craziness of the regular school time. So you sort of get to know the students a little bit deeper because just physically less people.
What does a typical Shabbat, when students are around, look like from your perspective?
So Friday night, we have about between 100 to 150 students, sometimes more, depending on if there's a unique Shabbos going on, a themed Shabbos or a speaker or something like that. We've had over 200 on Shabbos the past year. That's Friday night, and it's like, we have a big minyan, and then after the minyan, everybody chooses to daven. Sometimes we go upstairs to the library when there's too many people, and we have a big meal, and usually it ends up turning into a fabregan, where everybody sits around, we sing songs, we chat, we learn some Torah, we study, we say Hasidic stories, and that's a Friday night.
Does it feel like work for you? I think that's one of the things that people don't realize, that for rabbis, Shabbos is a work day.
My father-in-law always jokes around. I got a son-in-law who works on Shabbos,
Yeah. My wife used to say this, Wednesdays was her day off. We were living in Chicago. She used to call herself a Wednesday Adventist.
Yeah.
That was her thing.
Actually, when I first came out to Montreal, I used to do that. I used to take up, it was so busy, besides for Shabbos, every day of the week, I used to take up like 3-4 hours on Wednesdays or Thursdays. I think it was Wednesday, just for myself. I would learn, I would just relax. And then over the last few years, I can't even do that. Chabad has exploded that I don't even have those 3-4 hours to be able to. But Sunday's always my kids. The whole Sunday and Shabbos afternoon, I dedicate 100% to my kids. I go home from Shabbos afternoon, whatever, 2-3 o'clock, and it's my kids' time,
All right, so let's get into this discussion right after we hear from our sponsor.
UJA's Walk with Israel is happening this Victoria Day, Monday, May 22nd. Join thousands of community members for the world's largest Israel Solidarity Walk, followed by an epic Israeli-themed beach party to celebrate Israel's 75th birthday. Get all the details by visiting walkwithisrael.com. This is our moment to unite as one strong and proud Jewish community. Religious and secular, left and right, Jews and allies. Everyone belongs at the Walk with Israel. Register before before May 19th. And if you use the promo code CJN, you can save 10% on all Walk Bundle packages. To register, visit walkwithisrael.com.
All right, so I want to preface this discussion by noting that, there might be disagreements, there might not. We agree on a lot of things, we disagree on some things. Any disagreements that we might have are a machloket l'shem shamayim. It's a term that we use in the rabbinic world. It's an argument for the sake of heaven. Right? Shmuly and I like each other. We're friends. We were okay. We promised. You wanted to bring a bottle of whiskey while we're gonna for today to have a little bit of so let's leave the recording clean and we'll go back sometime later today or this week or whenever and we'll have a little time together. I like you. I respect it. I hope that's the same for me too. I hope you like me. Oh, okay, good.
In the time of year that we are right now, it's important to stress that. Lag BaOmer, this is Rabbi Akiva's story of not giving honor to one another, and it's a special time to actually sit down with people that you don't necessarily agree with everything, and find bridges.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's an important time of the year.
I also want to state that I don't think it's productive that we're going to kind of bracket one of the big elephants in the table in the room whenever you talk about Chabad is this idea of Mashiach. Was the Lubavitcher Rebbe the Mashiach or not? I don't want to get into any of these messiness discussions. There's a lot of that discussion already online, not just with Shmuly, but with many other people. If you really are concerned that Chabad is messianist and thinks that the seventh Lubavitcher Rebbe was the Messiah, that he never died, or that he died, he's going to be resurrected. There are many Chabad Hasidim that strongly disagree with that. They think it's completely untrue, and if you are concerned with it, just go and ask your local Chabad individual. If you're concerned that that's who they are, ask them and they'll tell you. And I think we're at the point where people don't deny these things or discuss it, so we're not going to discuss that tonight. Okay. I want to start by asking you, what do you think Chabad does well that other Jewish groups don't?
That's a very interesting question. Wow.
I only ask interesting questions.
We're going straight. They stick straight for the kishkis. Listen, I don't like talking about other organizations.
So that's your organization. Yeah. What do you guys do well?
So I want to highlight some of the things that I sort of in my mind see Chabad excelling in, and hopefully people learn from it. Is the number one thing that I would say is a strong suit of Chabad is Mesiras Nefesh. What does Mesiras Nefesh mean? Mesiras Nefesh means self-sacrifice. People may think a Chabad rabbi moving to an island, the Caribbean, or some island off Colombia. It's the novelty wears off very fast, and it's truly a self-sacrifice, and self-sacrifice for the Jewish people, for the love of a fellow Jew, is so deep that they are willing to go out and sort of bring Judaism to wherever somebody needs it. And I think that's a very unique thing. We could talk about where that comes from and how it develops, but I think not to say that other organizations, people don't have Mesiras Nefesh. I think anybody who's in the Kli Kodesh meaning in a holy work, as a rabbi, as a teacher, they all have Mesiras Nefesh, self-sacrifice, because it's definitely not an easy job. But I think there's something to be said about when you see the shluchim and how they operate with a smile, and not only the rabbi but the rebbitzin also. I can tell you, I'll be the first to say that not most of the success of Chabad of McGill has a lot to do with my wife Rashi. Couldn't make it today. But it's a team effort, and it's not only the rabbis or the guys that are having this self-sacrifice. Yeah, we're going to go out and we're going to build a Chabad house in Timbuktu or something, or we're going to go out to Montreal, McGill University, right? It's also a lot of the rebbitzins and the wives of the shluchim that really not only take a leadership role, but are have just as much of that drive and that self-sacrifice and that love for the fellow Jew as the rabbi. And I see it in my own life, and I see it in my friends' lives that they're on shlichus, and it's not even a question in my mind.
So it's interesting. It echoes, but in a very different way. One of the comments that we got after this first episode was that one of the people that wrote in said that Chabad is so good at relationships. right? I had a bar mitzvah at a shul. I went there for 20 years, and I don't think the rabbi can pick me out of a lineup, a police lineup, anywhere. I couldn't pick me out of anything. The Chabad rabbi, the first week we moved into a new neighborhood, he was there in the first week. He was, invited me for a Shabbos. He always knew who I was. He was always good. The Chabad has some of the best customer service, the best relationships that you possibly have because they actually believe in it, right? So what you see as Mesiras Nefesh, what you see as this idea of like, I'm giving of myself. No, you understand that relationships are at the core of what humanity is about, and you say, you know what, there are people in Belize, there are people in, I don't know, in some town in the Central Europe that doesn't have somebody to have a relationship with as a Jew. I'm going to go there and have a relationship with them as a Jew.
Through Ahavas Yisrael, through love, through a love of whatever Ahavas Yisrael means, it's an expression of Ahavas Yisrael. Mm-hmm. If it's important for me, then it's important for everybody. Mm-hmm. So...
Yeah, so I want to add one little thing. I actually think that, and when Jewish communal professionals talk amongst themselves, you often hear this, and I'm curious if what they say on the other side, from the Chabad side, Chabad probably has one of the greatest marketing teams and campaigns across the world, like of any Jewish nonprofits, even non-Jewish nonprofits, right? That the marketing that Chabad manages to do, to get the message out of what they do and how they do it, is probably world class.
What do you mean by marketing? Like, as in the rabbi, not rabbi moving to a city and sort of getting his message out, or you're saying global, like when you open up Instagram, you open Facebook?
All of the above. All of the above. The fact is that, if Judaism is a product, the best salesmen, right, the ones who have the best able to get out to the market and get people to buy their product is Chabad.
I'll tell you something very interesting, and I don't know if it's the best.
And some of it is slick visuals, and some of it is great teaching materials, maybe, and some of it is just this relationship.
I don't know. I don't know how to measure best or not best, but I can tell you, I have an extremely important memory of my childhood. It was Hanukkah, either 1991 or 1990. I don't remember the year. The Soviet Union had just fell, mm-hmm. and they were doing something called Hanukkah Live, right? Mm-hmm. Hanukkah Live. I didn't really understand what it was. I was a kid, but the whole community. I grew up. For those of you who don't know, I grew up in Los Angeles, California. So we all went to the main Chabad house in Los Angeles, California, which is in Westwood, Gailey Avenue, and there was a huge truck. I think it was there. Again, I don't know. I think it was there. I don't remember exactly. But in fact, there was a truck with a satellite. A huge satellite on it, mm-hmm. right? And we get in there. I was like, yeah, so there's an event, a Hanukkah event, right? What was it? It was basically in New York. They had the Rebbe in 770, Eastern Parkway, his shoulder, main center.
We're in Quebec. We say 770.
770, right? And basically, through satellite, they connected a bunch of communities. So you had Russia, which I remember seeing Russia. It was like you hear about Russia, it was like foreign, right? And there was France, the Eiffel Tower. I remember the Eiffel Tower being lit, the menorah being lit over there. And you had Israel. I think you had Australia. I don't remember all the different countries that it had. There was some countries were featured, some countries were not. But the Rebbe used this at that time. There was no streaming, there was no internet, there was no live, there was nothing of this. The Rebbe agreed to allow this idea, using technology for what? For Pearson, for spreading Judaism. And I think this idea of marketing, and Chabad, you have Chabad.org. Chabad.org is from further.
It's my brother-in-law's shul in Stamford, Connecticut. He runs Chabad.org. What's his name? Shmutkin.
Shmutkin, exactly. Yeah. So you talk about the marketing is because the Rebbe truly believed. The Rebbe spoke about it by Chabad, by Hanukkah, that anything the Eibishter, all technology that God sort of allows to exist in the world, we have to be able to use for Kedusha, for holiness. So I think Chabad is good at marketing is because they were always first to use these things, or at least in the Orthodox world or in the ultra-Orthodox world. They were never afraid of engaging with having a satellite, a hookup with all these different. And there was hookup means there's a television, right? Mm-hmm. Hookup means so. I think that the marketing is because we've been doing it for so long. We engage with it and see how can we use this tool for Kedusha, for holiness, and we jump on it. So it could be that we're good at it, or we're early at it, or we just ahead of the curve. I don't know how to...
Sure, no, I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense, that because you're not willing to cut out certain things, and you're willing to say, I'll use any tool available to get a Jew to have a good relationship with me, with whoever that me might be, that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
What do you think aside from that? Because sounds like a huge part of it.
Yeah.
But when I was growing up, Chabad was not the level that it is now. I grew up in Montreal in a fairly big Chabad community, but Chabad meant there were people that were Chabad Hasidim. They would go to visit the Rebbe, and that was it. You didn't have shluchim at this global level, at 30 years ago, let's say, than you have now. What do you think caused the rapid rise, the unbelievable juggernaut that became Chabad globally for the past 30 years, aside from just the need to use any message possible or any way to get that message across?
It's a very good question. And again, I don't know if I have the magic bullet to give the answer to what exactly what this how Chabad has exploded. But first of all, there's natural growth, right? On a very simple level, there's natural growth, meaning 1950 there was X amount of Chabad families living in New York, and X amount of Chabad families living in Montreal, and X amount of Chabad families living in Israel, and that was it. I mean, my family's from Los Angeles. My grandfather became a Chabad Chassid. He wasn't a Chabad Chassid before, and he became a Chabad Chassid because of he got trapped to Chabad, became a Chabad Chassid, and now Los Angeles has one of the largest Chabad, and I don't mean shluchim, I don't mean centers. They have a large. So there's that natural growth aspect. So more Chabad. But
that to be fair, that's where Shaar Hashomayim actually I think does have a point that the number of actual Chabad Hasidim has not grown that much. But the massive growth globally is much more about Chabad houses and about reach than about the pure numbers. Crown Heights, which maybe ground zero for Chabad Hasidim, is a lot of Chabad Hasidim, more than there was in 1970. Yeah. But if you compare that to the image that Chabad presents on the world stage, there's not that many more Chabad Hasidim than you would expect from, like you said, from natural growth from any other Hasidic group or any other Orthodox.
Well, there's a lot. I mean, again, I don't know. Yeah. I can't even know the numbers, but there's a lot. There's definitely a lot more than there was in 1970. Mm-hmm. So just by the mere numbers and more, there's going to be more people.
You got to send them to more places in the world than they're going to
people. Exactly.
Yeah, I hear.
So that's one thing, and it's a very interesting thing to talk about how the Rebbe was a very interesting leader, right? And specifically, a very interesting Jewish leader, very unique, and not only an even Hasidic leader, in a sense that you have a lot of Hasidic Rebbes, and this is going back for generations, right? That you have something called takanos, right? They make rules, or they make this is what it means. This is what it means to be. This type of chassid. We follow X, A, B, C. Besides for being a from Yid, keeping Shulchan Aruch. In addition, we have X, Y, Z, right? The Rebbe never told anybody, you have to go on shluchos. The Rebbe never said that, right? Very interesting. The Rebbe, the Rebbe spoke for thousands of hours publicly. You have 40 volumes of his edited talks, meaning talks that he actually edited, on the revealed parts of Torah, right? Mm-hmm. That means Talmud, Shulchan Aruch, Medrash. Then you have 5-6 volumes of just his Jewish mysticism, right? What people don't realize is most of what the Rebbe did was teach Torah. The Rebbe was teaching, the Rebbe publicly teaching. And it's actually an interesting story. There was a very famous Askin, and Askin is a community leader for Agudas Yisrael. His name was Chaskel Besser. He's very famous in the 70s. Agudas Yisrael is a organization in America, worldwide, I guess, not only in America. And he was one of their main askarim. And the Rebbe was talking about their main community, leaders. And the Rebbe was talking about something specific on Shabbos and the Farbrengen. And the Rebbe was a particular issue that was going on in the Jewish world. And he actually was one of the few people who had an open door policy with the Rebbe. I don't know why. He was able to go in and out anytime he wanted. And he told the Rebbe, I don't understand. Why are you screaming at Farbrengen about this particular issue? Get some askarim, get some community leaders, tell them to do the job and get the job done. So the Rebbe told him that everybody knows that I don't work with askarim. Why? Because nobody's ever able to say, the Lubavitcher Rebbe told me to do this in a private meeting, and that's what I have to do. Never. The Rebbe said everything he wants to do in public. Where did he say this? He said this in all his talks. I mean, the Rebbe sitting on Shabbos and talking about the greatness of how great a mitzvah is, and when a Jew engages in a mitzvah, how you reveal God in the world, and all these things. And the ultimate, the outcome of people, Hasidim standing there is, if this is so important, I have to go out, and if it's important for me, so important for me, it's important for another Yid. Mm-hmm. Like, the famous, everybody sees the mitzvah tanks that go around in Manhattan and all over the Rebbe never told anybody to make a mitzvah tank. The Rebbe, before 6th wrote a whole story about the tefillin campaign. The Rebbe spoke about how important tefillin is, how it's a shmira. The Rebbe quoted the pasuk in the Gemara about how tefillin, is the nations of the world will see you and they'll be scared. Is that tefillin shel reish? It's the tefillin of the right. The Rebbe said this as a school to help out. So the Rebbe never said go to Manhattan and start putting on tefillin people. The Rebbe said, and we have to go and put on tefillin people. So what happened was a bunch of people got together. It started off on Eastern Parkway, actually, by the train station. We like to put on tefillin. And there's a development. Of course, the Rebbe was very happy, and once it happened, the Rebbe was, this is, a good thing. But the Rebbe never told people, hey, I want you to do this, I want you to do this. The Rebbe spoke about it, in a sense, almost like in a spiritual level, almost in the importance in a Torah way, through Torah, and then the Chassidim ran with it.
Sure.
So I think the growth is that, people go through the system. The Chassidim are studying the Rebbe's Torahs, the Rebbe's teachings. And this is so important to the world, so the message is very important. And the more Torahs the more they print it, the more people learn it, the more they're taught. I think more people are inspired to go on shlichus, to go out into the world. It's not necessarily a natural growth so much as the shlichus, but more people, more young people per capita are going on shlichus now than in 1970, because the inspiration is that much more, and that's much more studied, that's much more learned, that's much more talked about, that's much more visualized. So I think that's...
Do you think that the Hasidim of the Rebbe now, right, the people that are out there, these shluchim, the emissaries, do you think that the Torah that's being presented is always the Torah of Chabad Hasidus, or do you think that there is my contention? I'll tell you, one of my things that I've always thought about, and I have a lot more issues with people who I have a lot fewer issues with Chabad in general than people think that I do. But one of the things that I think about that I always feel is that sometimes Chabad doesn't always present the Torah that is normative within Chabad. Right, present the ideas that are very normative within Chabad. They don't necessarily present them to the general public, right? Because there's an understanding that some of this Torah isn't necessarily going to win us people who are going to come and listen to us more. I'll give a classic example, right? I think that there's a famous letter from the 5th Lubavitcher Rebbe that was very, very anti-Zionist. Not just a Zionist, that was very anti-Zionist. And I think that the majority of people that go to Chabad houses don't realize how much current Chabad thinking still is very much in line with that Chabad, not to say that Chabad is against Israel as a country, as a land, but Chabad as the Zionism as a secular state, the idea that we believe in a nation of Israel that was captured by Jews, by humans, right, with the assistance of God, because clearly it was a miraculous thing, right, and we have a state that we believe in, and we're Zionists, right, that Chabad doesn't really buy into that, as an example. Right, and then when you say that the anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism, there's a lot of Jews that are anti-Zionist that are very quiet about it, and namely most Chabad Jews are probably in that line. That's just an example, right?
I think it's a very, very good question. It's an important question to discuss. But I'll throw a question back at you. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you invite people over for Shabbos to your house that don't know much about Torah. Mm-hmm. When they walk in the first time to your house, do you tell them Mechalala Mois Yomos? Do you tell them somebody's Mechal Shabbos Mois Yomos?
If you violate the Sabbath, you're going to die.
Are you going to die? Is that the first thing you tell them when they walk into your house?
No, but I wouldn't not tell them if they asked me. If they came up to me and said, listen, but I also believe that nowadays, if somebody violates the Shabbos, right, there's no mechanism in place that is going to kill them.
Of course, but
But the difference is that Chabad actually enthusiastically believes that Zionism as a state is...
So let me unpack what I mean to say. What I mean to say is that there's a pasuk in the Torah, there's certain ideas in the Torah. Of course, there's the mechanism today, because we have no Sanhedrin, and of course, even what it says in the Gemara Sanhedrin, that if a Sanhedrin did put somebody to death, more than 170 years it was a bloody Sanhedrin, and if you actually learn the Sechta Sanhedrin, the Talmud tract Sanhedrin, and you see how almost impossible it is actually to fulfill this pasuk. It's almost impossible, but nevertheless, the pasuk in Torah says "B'chalal isyumos." So it's not the first thing you can say. Why? Because there's a lot more important things discussed before you get to that question.
I think a lot of Jews would find it as a very important statement.
No. I'm going to address it. I'm going to address it. But meaning we understand that there's ideas that you're not going to start with when you first meet somebody who doesn't know much about Judaism. So with that being said, understanding, I don't know of a shliach, and I could be wrong. Again, I'm not a spokesman for Chabad. I'm only a spokesman for Shmuly Weiss. Chabad McGill as being the representative of Chabad McGill. That if somebody asks them a straight up question, they would say something that's not true. But let's unpack what you're saying. The Rebbe Rashab did write that letter, of course. And Chabad is a chain. And of course, just like Torah is Ani Avaya V'Leish Nisi, it says I'm God, I don't change. Torah is not going to change. The ideas behind Chabad Chassidus also don't change. But with that being said, right, we have to separate two ideas, right? And this is, I wouldn't say Chabad is not anti anything, right? I wouldn't say that they're anti-something, What Chabad, if you're talking about Zionism, right? So you have Zionism, the idea of returning to Zion. We say 3 times a day. I daven 3 times a day. Right? That the Shekhinah should come back to Zion. Does a Chabad? Would any Chabad Chassid not believe that Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel, is the rightful land of the Jewish people? It's the homeland of the Jewish people? Absolutely not. Every Chabad Chassid, and I think every Frum Yid believes that. I don't forget about Chabad Chassid. I think every Frum Yid would believe such a thing, right? So when you deal with political Zionism, the idea of political Zionism, everything has to be taken in the lens of history, right? It's an important thing to go back. I love, as a personal, I love history, and specifically, I love Jewish history. It's very important to look at this idea through the lens of history, right? What was going on when the Rebbe Rashab wrote that letter? What was going on in the Jewish community? What was going on? There was early 1900s, and there was this big movement of Zionism, right? And Agudas Yisrael was created, and the truth is, the Rebbe Rashab, the fifth Chabad Rebbe, was one of the people who started Agudas Yisrael. And then after a while, he said, he backed out. This is not. I'm not going to. I don't want to. This organization is not necessarily for me, so to say. He's always sent representatives, but he stopped with him and Chaim Brisker, famous Chaim Brisker. They backed out of Agudas Yisrael, right? For a lot of various reasons, we don't have the time to go through it, right? But so you're talking about political Zionism. A Frum Yid, a religious Jew, a halachic Jew, his number one question is always, what does Torah want from me? What would Torah say about this, right? And of course, there was an argument. There was an argument between a lot of Rabbanim at the time, what the right approach to this is, right? And some Rabbanim held that even though political Zionism is, it doesn't mesh well with Torah, the halachic Judaism, and but nevertheless, it's better than when we be there and try to and get involved and try to inspire
But there are many Jews that believe that it did mesh with halachic Judaism. That it was 100% this was what we should be doing as Orthodox Jews.
But there was a discussion, right?
Sure.
And there were some people that said this is not as the political Zionism that we're talking about, the state of Israel, is not for us to get involved, right? And the Rabbi Rashab wrote. The famous thing says they took out the be'er, Beis Yaakov L'chul V'Nachal Be'er Hashem. They took out the word Be'er Hashem, Bar Hashem. So they wrote talk that he said that they were trying to take away the Torah out of Eretz Yisrael. The Rebbe Rashab, Fifth Chabad Rebbe, said that's not what our Eretz Yisrael is. I mean, I'm sure everybody knows. I mean, I'm not a historian of Zionism, but there was even a discussion not to make Israel in Israel. I'm not saying it was popular, but it was on the table. So that was not something that the Rebbe Rashab wanted to get involved in. He disengaged with that. And after 48, and after 1948, and after the state of Israel was created, the Frierdiker Rebbe, the previous Rebbe, the Rebbe's father-in-law, didn't take the hard line that this is, we have to fight this till the end. It happened. The Yidden are moving here, and now we have to engage with them, engage with Yidden as just like you would engage Yidden anywhere else, and we have to try to influence them for the good. And even till today, Chabad does not take an official political stance anywhere in Israel, right? Yes, the political stance that Chabad takes is don't give away land, because the Rebbe believed that was halacha in Shulchan Aruch. It went back to Shulchan Aruch. You cannot give away land because it's dangerous for Jews. That's what the Rebbe believed, right? And that's what the Rebbe's shita, the Rebbe's opinion on was. So to say that Chabad is anti-Zionist, it's you have to understand what anti-Zionist is. They love
the idea that I think that what I would say is that it's still fair to say that Chabad doesn't want to have, doesn't really believe in the idea of a secular state within Israel. Doesn't believe, meaning that there should be a government that is secular, that doesn't have purely a religious basis to it. Right, a theocracy, to name it that way, and that if you have non-religious Jews that have a secular government of some kind, this is not a government that we necessarily believe in, and we only believe that the Mashiach is the only one that is going to come and bring Israel into our hands.
When you say we believe in it, what does it mean believe in it? Meaning, people Chabad Chassidim in Eretz Yisrael pay taxes, right?
Well, it's a good question.
They pay taxes.
Satmar Chassidim don't, right? Which is interesting, but they do.
They pay taxes. I'll tell you something else, right? Out of all the Chassid, even you take the ultra Orthodox Jews, right? That you would say are Zionists, that you would say that are Zionists, and comparing to Chabad, there's more Chabad Chassidim that go to the IDF than them.
Sure.
How many Chassidim go to the IDF? How many Belz Chassidim go to the IDF?
More now than there used to be, for sure. But that's it, for sure.
But Chabad Chassidim, if somebody's not in yeshiva, they go to the IDF. So an Israeli citizen, I'm not talking about an American flying to the lone soldier. That exists also.
But it sounds like what you're saying is that the fifth Lubavitcher Rebbe was wrong.
No, chas v'shalom.
But he said some things that were very, very anti-Zionist in the statement, and there were things that he said that were actually proven wrong. Right, that this was never going to work, and that the religious Jews are never going to really be part of this, and it's never going to work. But at the end of the day, so there's still a lot of Chabad Hasidim that say, I'm not going to go against this Rebbe's argument. I don't want to dwell too much on it.
Not to say that the Rebbe Rashab is wrong. It's a very important thing. Not to say that the Rebbe Rashab, nobody in Chabad will say that the Rebbe Rashab is wrong. But you have to look at how Chabad looks at, let's say, for example, the state of Israel. I live in Israel, I'm not going to pay taxes. What does that mean? I'm taking from them. I live in Montreal, I don't pay taxes. Because you're not a religious Jew, I don't have to pay taxes.
I'm not going to insert a joke here about religious Jews and taxes.
Or
it's not fair. It's not right.
Or somebody, the IDF, to say the IDF is not protecting the most amount of Jews in the world, but chas v'shalom. So it's not necessarily because the Rebbe Rashab was against this. That means we're not. I mean, I'm not going to help out to protect Jews because everything they're doing is. I don't believe everything they're doing.
Let me ask you very quickly.
Rashab's wrong.
I'll ask you briefly in this way. When was the last time Hatikva was sung at Chabad House at McGill?
Why is Hatikva? Why is Hatikva the measuring stick of your support of Israel?
It's a pretty strong measurement. Let me ask people in the audience here: is Hatikva a pretty strong measurement of Zionism? Well, I'll ask you: when was the last time at a Chabad House at McGill that you gave a prayer for the government, for the success of the Israeli government?
Look what the Rebbe did. The Rebbe sent, right? The greatest and the brightest to send to Eretz Yisrael, to be shluchim, to help out.
Sure.
The Rebbe sent his men. He could have sent them to Wyoming, Texas.
Sure, because there's a lot of Jews there.
But where did he send? He said that there's a lot. Many
Nobody's doubting, like I said, nobody's doubting that Chabad has a commitment to the land of Israel.
Koil Chabad.
Again.
Koil Chabad is the biggest, if not the biggest, one of the biggest charities that helps all Israelis. So to say that that Chabad is disingenuous about how they tell people about the state of Israel. I think that's also. I think that's a little unfair. I'll tell you why. Because we engage with the people of Israel as much as we can. We respect them. How many politicians came to the Rebbe, right, to get advice, to seek advice? How much time did the Rebbe give these politicians and people that came to the Rebbe to encourage them in all the different things and whatever they asked the Rebbe?
I don't disagree, but to
say that it's not anti-Zionist. What do you mean by Zionism? Is it anti-people that are against halacha? Yes.
Okay. Fair enough.
They believe. I'm not saying that everybody believes that Zionism is against halacha. I'm saying Chabad took a shita. Chabad took a position back then, and they said this is our position. Just like I'm going to say, somebody, it was a halachic question.
To be fair, I don't think that it's a wrong. You're entitled. Chabad is entitled to their position.
Yeah.
I just think that sometimes people aren't aware. Right? Here's another example, and this has nothing to do with Zionism. We can move on, right?
Yeah.
I think that it's to me it's fairly standard Chabad Hasidic thought, right? The Tanya talks about this a lot, right? That the nature of a Jewish soul versus a non-Jewish soul is very fundamentally different. And then if you take two people, I don't know, Father John Walsh. Father John Walsh. He was as close to a tzaddik as you can get, but by being a Catholic priest in Montreal, he devoted his life to helping people in Montreal. If you put him and you put Jeffrey Epstein together and they're going to heaven, right? At the end of the day, the Jewish soul inherently puts a person at a higher level than a non-Jewish individual.
The Alter Rebbe, when the Alter Rebbe says that in Tanya, the Alter Rebbe finishes off the parak, the Hasidim Umas Ohilam are not like that. And that's actually not true. So you say, potentially, yes, the Jewish soul could, but that has nothing to do with actuality. Meaning the Chasudi Umas Ohilam,
you have to be a special, like a Sugihara, in order for that.
If I'm not mistaken, the Rebbe said today, every single Gentile falls on the category of Chasudi Umas.
Okay.
I don't want to misquote myself, but today, clearly how the Rebbe started the campaign for Sheva Mrs. B'nai Noach is because they believe that today we're in a state where the B'nai Noach are already in a set of Chasudi Umas. But let me what does the Torah mean? B'nai B'chayr Yisrael. When you open up a Torah, it says, "You are my firstborn." What does the Torah mean when it says that? The Torah doesn't say that about the other 69 Umas Ohilam.
Nations of the world. Yeah, all the other nations.
All the other nations of the world. So I'll ask you that question back.
Okay.
When you open up a Torah, the Torah says, "B'nai B'chayr Yisrael." You're my kahanim. You're my firstborn. Doesn't that seem to be saying that a Jewish person is?
So you want to ask me what I think about it?
No. So what I'm saying is that the Alter Rebbe is not coming up with a fundamentally new concept that didn't exist in Judaism, and is introducing in Tanya. When we talk about the soul, a Jewish soul, first of all, it's based on things from the Moral, based on things from the things.
It's based on Kabbalistic approaches to the soul.
From the Rambam, also not only based on the Rambam, based on Baal Shem Tov and the Maggid, and also the same way you answer the question, B'nai B'chayr Yisrael, or you guys are Mamlechas Kaihanim, like we read in Parshas Yisrael before the Torah was given. You can answer for the Neshama thing. So I'm curious, how would you answer?
So I'm a rationalist, right?
Yeah.
And this is where we can disagree because you're into the hidden meanings of the Torah, and I don't think that there's no hidden meanings in the Torah, that we don't know that there's nothing that goes on after we die, that there's another world. I'm one of those people that believes I don't know, so I don't like to speculate too much. Because it's all speculation, because I don't think that I have access to a lot of this information. I think that that's a strong way of approaching Judaism, to be rational. So hold on. So if you ask me,
what does that mean?
It means my son, who is the eldest, my firstborn. But that doesn't necessarily put you.
I'm going to be
So I'm going to be a nation of priests. But that doesn't mean,
Kaddish.
and a holy nation, but that doesn't mean that other people can't be holy. So I think, so if you ask me what I think it believes, I think that as a Jew...
You say the same thing about what Dr. Rebbe says in Tanya, about Hasidic philosophy.
No.
Which again, it's not only Hasidic philosophy. It comes from
all Hasidic, a lot of Hasidic, yeah, exactly.
It comes from the Arizal.
I think what I'm trying to get at, so you didn't let me finish, is that I think that as a Jew, you may have a path, you may have tools that enable you to attain a certain degree of holiness, but you have to earn them just like anybody else does, right? That doesn't. But I think the Hasidic approach, the mystical approach, is that that you already start on a higher playing field. I don't want to get too far into it.
That doesn't contradict what the Hasidic thought is. Again, like I'm saying, it's not a novelty of the Chabad Hasidus. The Arizal says it.
It's a novelty of Hasidus in general.
Of Jewish mysticism.
Of Jewish mysticism. Okay, that's fair. But
so you could say the same thing, that potentially, right? This is a very bad mashal. I will give an example. I'll agree, but I'm thinking on my feet right now. I got to say, but Olympian. Take an Olympian, right?
Sure.
As they say, somebody who goes to professional sports. You got to be born with a fifth gear, right? You can't, as much as I always joke with the students, as much as I always wanted to be the quarterback for the Oakland Raiders, I would have never been able to be the quarterback for the Oakland Raiders, right? You got to be born with something special. I could have worked that my entire life. I could have done, right? But let's say somebody has that fifth gear, that special it, right? They could have, but they never worked in it. They never developed it. So they never end up their potential. That's what it means. That's what these soul ideas means in the Shama. It's chas v'sholom to say that somebody who is a horrible person who hurt people in this world, and just because he's a Yid automatically gets before somebody you could consider Hasidic Musa'ilum, which Hasidic Musa'ilum is the righteous of the nations. That's not a Jewish thing.
I just know that in my experience growing up with a lot of Chabad people around me, and even to this day, that type of thinking led, whether rightfully or wrongfully, to a lot of people having a lot of racist and particularist ideas that were xenophobic, basically by saying, I'm a Yid, I have a neshama, I have a soul. This guy, he only has an animalistic soul. He's a non-Jew, he's not deserving of any real recognition because he has an animalistic soul. And I see that from a lot, not necessarily from a lot of shluchim, but I see that from a lot, the reality from a lot of people that I speak to from Chabad, without realizing it, they come off as very xenophobic as a result of that.
To be fair, you walk into any Litvish yeshiva in Bnei Brak, they have the same mindset.
They're not the ones going out in the world and telling everybody to be Jewish. They're entitled to their opinion.
No, but what I'm trying to say is that it's not a uniquely the negative aspects of that can also come from reading a pasuk of the Torah.
I think
it's obviously not a right thing to. Right, I'll tell you straight up. Just because I believe that just because somebody is not a Yid, they have no holiness and they have no good in that. I would never say such a thing, and it's not something. And I did not grow up on shluchus, and I grew up in a home like that. That's the way we spoke. So we taught. That doesn't mean that a Yid doesn't have potential to be. But that's not. But that's a Jewish idea.
So I guess what it comes down to, and this is a real.
I want to stress.
I know exactly what you're saying.
It's a Jewish idea.
Absolutely. But I think that, I guess to take a step back from all of these points, the question that I have is, what responsibility, because I think that different people have different approaches, and maybe what does Chabad think the responsibility is to present the particulars of Chabad, right, to the world when they're presenting Judaism, right? Because the way that I put it, and I've said this many, many times, and I'll gladly say it in a public forum, I think that the issue that I have is that Chabad presents a particular form of Judaism, but it presents it as Judaism, when in reality there are many multiple Judaisms, there are even many multiple Orthodox Judaisms, but when Chabad goes out into the world and presents Judaism to the world, it basically says this is Judaism without people realizing that there's open questions within Chabad about Zionism, about the nature of non-Jews, about various Hasidic ideas, about very particularistic things that many, many other observant Orthodox Jews don't necessarily present, don't believe it.
Like I'm saying again, I don't think...
the question is, what's the responsibility of Chabad? So it's an open-ended question.
I understand, but again, throwing the question back at you, this is not a uniquely Chabad challenge. This is anybody that's going to go out into the world and wants to engage in the world for obviously good reasons. Nobody is moving to Timbuktu because they want to they want to mislead people on Judaism.
So in that sense, you're 100% right. I have the same question about outreach organizations that are not Chabad.
So let me finish my point, right? So anybody who's going to get, go out into the world to bring the beauty of Torah and mitzvahs, which is the only reason that they're doing it, because of Avas Yisrael, love a fellow Jew, to bring. We believe that this is the best thing for a fellow Jew to do, to engage in Torah and mitzvahs, right? Is anybody who's going to do that has that sort of that challenge. Mm-hmm. And like I said, just like you're not going to first thing a person walks into your house, and I'm not saying you because you're sitting next to me. Anybody is not going to say, before somebody knows about the beauty of Shabbos and the beauty of kashrus and the meaning of it, or even has learned any aspects of Torah, you're not going to tell them, you're not going to do that because it's out of context. Right? You need the context.
What you're saying is...
So what I'm saying is that the fact that you're going to walk into Westbury, like you're saying, you grew up in Snowden, mm-hmm. right? The fact that you grew up in Snowden, you hear one type of rhetoric, and you're going to go to Chabad house in Timbuktu, you hear different rhetoric. It's not because it's not a conscious decision that right now Chabad we're going to hide something like this big bag thing. We're hiding something for the Chas v'Shalom.
So I'm trying to figure out a better model for being able to present what I think, because you're right. It's not about. I don't think that you're being malicious necessarily, because like I said, I think you're. But you see where the question lies for some people, where they go and see this.
I think
the way how's this for a model, right? We were talking about marketing before. Right? Yeah. When you see an ad for marketing, right? Yeah. You don't get all of the things that are potentially possibility that are wrong. You don't get all the disclosures, right? It's not like when you get your mutual fund and they tell you have to read the full prospectus to know whether this is good or bad or whatever it is. You see an ad for Nike sneakers, running shoes, and they don't tell you in the ad. They tell you how amazing it is and how much it's going to make you run faster, but they don't tell you that every 400 kilometers, every 600 kilometers, you need a new pair of sneakers because they're going to wear out, right? And there's nothing wrong, and they'll tell you about that. They'll say, look, the nature of sneakers is that they wear out faster when they're running sneakers, but they don't tell you that right away. So what you're saying is that the flip side of marketing, of having great marketing, is that sometimes you elide some things right away in order to get the better message out there.
Yeah. But I would not exactly 100%. What I would say is that again, like I'm saying, I'm only talking for myself and of what I know. I can't talk for anybody I don't know. Right? Every shliach is their desire and their wish for every person they come in contact with is that they should grow in their Torah mitzvahs, in their own learning. We encourage study. We encourage individual study. We hack people crazy. Like I always tell people, I have this, there's all these different Shabbatons that go on all over, the world, and there's this program, that program. Many years ago, sort of me and my wife were sitting down and sort of strategizing what we know. Every year we sit down during the summer, what's our approach to be this year? What are we going to work on? I don't drive people crazy to go Shabbatons. That's not something that I'm not. What? I drive people crazy to study Torah, to learn Torah. So I encourage for people to explore Chabad yourself. No, we're not hiding anything. The Rebbe, 95% of what the Rebbe spoke about was all Torah mitzvahs.
I think you're 100% right. And to me, this goes to what I've spoken about in the past, about how the bigger issue that I have is not so much with Chabad for having good marketing, and sometimes with marketing you figure out what your priorities are and what your things are, but it's the general community, right? When you have a leadership that basically goes and says, oh, Chabad's going to come in and do this for us, and they're going to be free, we don't have to think about it, great, let's go and do this, without necessarily investigating and saying, what is Chabad offering, what's going on within Chabad, that it's a product, and there's many other products available.
So with all due respect, that's Chabad not shouldering.
I just told you, that's exactly what I just said. I said it's not Chabad's issue that they have great marketing, and that the community has chosen oftentimes to sort of walk away from that responsibility to sort of say that's that.
So that's a criticism. You say that's a criticism to the
general community. Absolutely, that they don't go to Chabad and say that.
And I want to ask at one more point. Out of all the religious, organizations that work in outreach, and for sure all Hasidic groups. I know maybe ArtScroll more now. There's not a movement that has put out more English books, more Spanish books, meaning in Torah.
Sure,
Torah.
absolutely.
We're trying to get the message that everybody, that like sort of, we're not getting the full picture of what Chabad is. Go to the library, go to the
sounds like the Book of Mormon, which gets translated into 150 languages also. It's smart marketing.
Absolutely. The point is, you want to know what Chabad is all about? Walk into any bookstore in Crown Heights. Sure. You have 1,000 books in English.
Yeah.
You have 1,000 books and for sure we encourage even to study in the original text, right? I always tell my son, I speak to my son in Yiddish, and I try to push him to make sure he knows Yiddish. I said, how are you going to learn the Rebbe's Torahs in the Rebbe's teachings in the original without speaking Yiddish?
My daughter learns Yiddish also, because one is in Duolingo and the other one is in Yiddish theater. So that's how they.
So your daughters are going to be able to study the Rebbe's teachings in the original.
Are you in the market for a new watch or a special piece of jewelry? Are you looking for the perfect engagement ring to pop the question? Atelier Lou has all this and more. Eric and the team at Atelier Lou can craft a piece for you, or you can select from some of the exclusive designers that they offer. From a simple bangle to a statement necklace, Atelier Lou can make you or your loved ones sparkle. Located in the heart of Westmount in Montreal or online at atelierlou.com, visit Atelier Lou for your next watch or jewelry purchase. And when you do, make sure to use promo code BON18 for 10% off your next purchase. That's atelierlou.com.
Look, we can go on for so many more. There's many other points, but I want to be able to wrap it up for the people that are here live and for the people that are, that are used to getting their amount of Bonjour Chai regular. This has been wonderful. I wonder if you can stick around just for a minute. We like to do our nachas of the week usually.
Okay.
Give something that feels good nachas. Is there anything that's happened this past week that gave you a little bit of nachas as a Jew that you want to call out and?
Wow, I listened to so many things that happened.
I figured I could put you on the spot. I wouldn't have to tell you in advance. You have something in your head.
I'll tell you. I can tell you this. We just came back from Pesach. It's almost Shavuos, but we feel like it's almost Pesach was yesterday, right? Mm-hmm. And Pesach is always a very, very busy time in Chabad of McGill. Many students need a seder, and most of our clientele are not from Montreal. They're from out of towners. They're at McGill University, and their community is Chabad of McGill, and it was very, very busy. This Pesach more than any other Pesach I've had in the last 16 years I've been here, and the seders were beautiful, and not only the seders, but it was a lot of students signed up for the Kosher for Passover meal plan, and I noticed that, and it was an increase. We're not talking about 10, 15. I'm talking about like 50, 60% more than last year. And I even looked because I looked back to see the numbers, right? Mm-hmm. Signed up because they want kosher for Pesach meal plan during the week. They can eat kosher for Pesach. And I was sitting, with it's a good time to engage with students to coming in and talking with them. And more than one student told myself and my wife, they said, thank you. Because I don't know if I would have kept kosher for Pesach if you guys wouldn't have been here. So it's always good. It's always good to hear good feedback. But to me, that's like, okay, I'm actually making an impact.
Beautiful.
I mean, not only is you can have a product, but not everybody's going to take your product, right? But people are actually saying, what? Maybe I have an opportunity to eat kosher for Pesach. Let me go eat kosher for Pesach. Why not? Right? So to me, that was something very beautiful for myself.
I'm going to call it something ritual also, but a little more recent. For those of you who haven't yet seen the Havdalah that was done last night by the Chief Rabbi of England after his after the day of the coronation day. He was at one of the royal palaces that they put him up for Shabbos so that he could walk, and they put up a video of him doing the Havdalah with the entourage that was around. I think it was a beautiful, beautiful moment, and Havdalah is one of my favorite rituals in general. But go check that out because it's a beautiful moment. They put it up on Twitter. That was a great. I think it was just not only the Chief Rabbi Mervis in general doing everything on Shabbos, but that Havdalah I think encapsulated everything that was going on. So that's my nachas for this week.
You reminded me of something that, if I'm not mistaken, when Menachem Begin went to Washington for the negotiations in the 70s of Camp David, he made Kiddush in the White House, publicly. He said he stopped on Friday night and he made Kiddush. The Rebbe said there was a Kiddush Hashem. He made a Kiddush Hashem.
Literally.
Exactly, literally. He sanctified God's name publicly by making stopping. A Yid stops and makes Kiddush on Friday night. I think same thing. It was pure Kiddush Hashem. The Chief Rabbi of England, what he did, everybody knows that he walked, and everybody knows he stayed up in the palace and he made Havdalah. It was pure Kiddush Hashem.
Rabbi Shmuly, this was wonderful. Let's do this again sometime.
Yes.
Anytime we have to do Rohr Chabad,
Yes.
we'll get you, and then I owe you a whiskey, and we'll do that on a Shabbos, or maybe even during the week. We'll figure that out.
And again,
thank you again.
I enjoyed this immensely, and like you said, everything's L'Shem Shemaim.
Thank you for listening to Bonjour Chai for the week ending May 14th, Shabbat, Parashat Behar Bechukotai. The show is produced and edited by Zach Kaufman, and the executive producer for CJN Podcast is Michael Freeman. Our music is by So-Called. We are a project of the Jewish Living Lab and are distributed by the CJN Podcast Network. You can listen to all our past episodes on our page at thecjn.ca/bonjour, and you can subscribe to the podcast and automatically receive all episodes on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. We really would love it if you told a friend about Bonjour Chai. It really is one of the best ways that we get new listeners. As always, you can email us with comments at bonjour@thecjn.ca. I'm Avi Feingold.
I'm Shmuly Weiss.
Thank you all for listening.